Hey guys, thanks for coming and watching my channel. I am excited today about reviewing my own work. I did a photo shoot, just finished it recently, and every time I finish some work, I like to go back and see what I did well, see what I did not do well, and try to learn from that. And I think that's really key for getting better at anything, really, is being honest with yourself and being able to say, you know what, that could have been better, and here's how. And write it down, and then next time I go to a shoot, I can know exactly what to focus on and how to really knock it out of the park. Now, before we look at these photos, I think it's important that we not focus on the brand itself. I need to feel like I'm not inhibited, that I can say whatever it is about these photos, good or bad, without worrying about it reflecting poorly on the company, the people I worked with, or without them seeing it and worrying that I didn't do my best. Now, I want you to know, client, if you're watching this, any future clients, I have done the absolute best that I know how to do. I lost sleep over this. I made sure that all of my ducks were in a row and that I planned and paid attention to every little detail to the best of my ability. Now, hindsight is 20/20. It's easy now to go back and say, well, I think now that I know exactly all the variables are no longer variables and I know exactly what happened, it's easy for me now to say how I could have done better. But I just want you to know I did my best. And I think what I gave this company is going to really sell their product. And I've already received feedback from them. They love all the images and videos I provided. And so I'm confident that they'll understand what I'm trying to do here. So let's get into it. Now, if you've seen my other work, you may recognize that this has a similar look and feel to my other work. Not everything here does. And that's because the product is a happy, feel-good, give you freedom, pain relief, recovery product. It's not a hardcore, intense, dramatic, dark product. And so I really tried to use natural light and make sure that everything feels very soft and natural and colorful and bright. So there is a little bit of a difference stylistically, but that's because I think that's what's best for my client, which is a higher priority to me than just shooting whatever I want and telling them to go screw themselves and they have to like it. That's why you may notice that they're a little bit more natural light than some of my other work. The critiques that I have are that when I scouted this location, I went in the evening and the light was beautiful. I just loved it and I couldn't wait to shoot it. I got there, we shot in the morning, it was 27 degrees. Now the other consequence of it being in the morning is that the light is now shining on the mountains rather than shining from behind the mountains. And the result of that now is that my image is bisected. I have a shadow side down here, and I have a light side up here. And that creates a contrast that makes it a little bit hard to look at. Now that doesn't mean this image isn't working or that it's bad. It's just one of those things I look for to try to make my images read very easily and feel very clean. This still reads and it still feels nice and it feels natural. It's just one little thing that I think it could be better if it wasn't two separate exposures, basically. Anyway, that's my critique here. I think the expressions are good. It's sharp. I think the colors are nice. The sky. I think the talent we got were good. Yeah, so overall, I think this is working and it's pretty good. Now here I can see an immediate difference in color between the first one and the second one. It feels like maybe there's a little bit more green in the shadows. So that's something that I should pay more attention to. That being said, there were two photos that are almost identical that they selected, go together really well, and I think overall they fit just fine. It's not going to look out of place on their website or wherever they use it. But again, not too bad. Same issue though, the sun's hitting over here. I think I controlled it pretty well. I like it. Now these pictures I'm showing you are not the ones I chose. I gave them over 100 options of ones that were, that looked nice or could work for them. And they chose 20 out of those. And so these are the ones they picked. There are some others that I think are good and that I might have used instead, but here's the ones the client chose, and that's really what it comes down to. So here's a shot. I like the color. I like the colors of the shirt against the ground. It really fits. The only thing I would probably change here is the way that the product kind of comes off of the edge of her leg like this. One of the features of the product that they really wanted to show is that it sticks well. And while it is sticking, it's doing its job. in this photo, it's kind of looking maybe like it's not right there. And so that's something that I could have fixed in post just to help it communicate clearly what it does and how it works. But again, it's not bad. It is how it's supposed to be. Her leg, it's round and her skin is stretched. And when she stands up, in some of the other pictures, you can see that it's going to end up laying flush with her quadriceps. And there's not really a problem with the product. It's just the way that it lays when your skin's stretched out like that. Okay, another one. Different lighting. The sun came up. She's pressing it down. This one, out of the hiking shots, I think might be the weakest one. It was shot pretty dark, so there's a little bit of noise in the background. But the background has these dead plants all in it, shooting this direction. And I didn't really like that. I put green into the background a little bit to make it feel less dead. But there's just something about it where the light on their faces just feels a little weak because there isn't much of it. And so while it has a sunshiny feeling, and I think this would fit just fine in any kind of catalog or brochure and nobody would think anything of it, when I look at it with my self-critical eye, I think, well, this isn't one of the best ones in terms of my taste. But I can see why they picked it. I think it's working. The product's good. The light's sunshiny. There's interesting color. Their expressions are good. So it's all right. So here's a guy putting it on. I don't really have much to say about this one. It's pretty straightforward. I really just wanted a on-the-nose picture of the product front and center that they could use that's a little more close up. So I've cropped into his head there and down below. I could have cleaned up some of these wrinkles I didn't notice before. Not the end of the world, but that's certainly something that would help it feel a little bit more polished. This photo, I think it's a nice photo. The only thing that really bothers me is these shoes. I think I could have changed that green color to black or something that wouldn't draw attention to them. Not the end of the world. There's green in the background. It ties together. Also, I think this one would be strengthened if it was accompanied with a front-facing shot that was close up on him smiling after throwing the stone. Like this could be the wide, and then there's the tight with his face in it. But we were really limited. The ground here is real gross and muddy, and behind us is all parking lot and cars, and so there really wasn't much of an opportunity unless I just had him turn around right here in place, which wouldn't have made sense with the stone skipping. So we did what we could with what we had, and I think this is a nice one that they chose. And it's got the product in there, and throwing stuff is hard for guys with shoulder problems and stuff like that. Tennis elbow. Okay, we're into the gym. What I really like about this one is the framing of the dumbbells around his head. We look right at his eyes. That's what's sharp, and then the product's right there. I don't know, anytime you got elements in the shot that support the activity being done in the shot, like these weights and the bench and the textured floor, all of this speaks to the gym. If he were doing this on a carpet with, pieces of cheese in his hand, it wouldn't, that's what makes it a fitness shot, is these elements. It says 50 pounds. We know he's lifting a lot. So anyway, the elements that are making it about fitness are also framing his face. I think there's something about the light in this and some of the other pictures I shot here in the gym. You'll notice it's a lot different than what I normally shoot because, again, I wanted it to be very natural light. I wanted it to be authentic so that it didn't take away from that light, happy feeling of the product. If we did a really dark fitness shoot with all kinds of kickers and gels and a really dark environment, then it would have this really hardcore feeling that wouldn't really match up with the rest of the products. And so I allowed the lighting to be a little bit loose. I had a bay door here above him that I opened up to get the natural light in there, and then you can see there's this yellow-orange color that's coming from the interior lights of the gym. And I desaturated them a bit so that it would be more controlled, but I let it be in there a little bit because that's, it feels natural. So you can see the same thing here in the shadows. It's a little bit yellow. And you can see in the mirror the color of the lighting. It's just a little more yellow. But I have a bay door here, and I let that open. The lighting doesn't really bother me here. I think the color is pretty nice. and the sculpting that the lighting's doing. The thing that bothers me is this background. I already took out some competing elements in this area and on the door and some things. I dimmed this door right here because it was catching the light really brightly. But again, I still don't really like this door or these light switches. I don't really need this mirror here. If it were all cinder block all the way across, I think that would make this a stronger image, but I don't really have control over that. This wasn't a situation where I could just go around taking down mirrors and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, this was the best spot in the gym, and I think it's a good picture that'll serve them for what they need. These are just things that I think could have made it better if it were possible. I don't mind that the tire's a little bit blurry because it's moving, so it kind of gives a sense that this wasn't just posed. This was posed. Anyway, maybe I could have cleaned up his cheek right here a little bit, but I think it's a good shot. So in most of the locations, I did these flat lays with the product surrounded by some elements that sort of describe where it's being used. And I was pretty happy with how all these came out. I think they're pretty strong. I shot most of them with the intent that they would be cropped in on a little bit further. Whenever you're shooting for companies, rather than just for your Instagram account for people to click like, it's important most of the time to leave extra breathing room in the composition, which can make it hard as a photographer because part of the fun of being a photographer is deciding how to crop your photo. But when you're shooting for companies, the graphic designers that are using the photos often want options. They want the ability to do the cropping themselves, and that makes it so they can fit the photo in any application they choose, tall or wide or square or off-center or in the center, whatever. And so it's generous of a photographer to shoot wide and give the designer that thing that they want. And that's so I try to do that a little bit. This one, I think this turned out pretty well. This is my running shots. This model was really great to work with. I think she was probably in her late 40s or 50s even maybe, but she doesn't look like it. She's a pretty lady. She looks young. And she did a good job for us. I really like this location. I like how it's all just gray, and so I get to play with the hard shadows. I waited till the sun just barely came up so it would break and slice everything in half with this shadow. So I got exactly what I wanted, I think, in that environment, relative to the lighting at least. So again, you can see this line right here that I was trying to get. Then we got the product, and she's stretching her ankle. I think there's a lot of coloring options you could do with a picture like this. It's sort of abstract, and the background is really flat. So there's a lot that you could do to stylize it, but I wanted to keep it pretty natural and consistent with the other photos. Here's my running flat lay. So I got my water bottle and headphones and the concrete, so it all fits together. Here's my yoga. She's peeling the adhesive off. I really like how this one came out. I think the light's really great, and the model, of course, was awesome. She's the actual practitioner of yoga, and she's very strong and actually knows how to do just about anything you can imagine. They picked this one, which, from her perspective, I think is probably disappointing because of all the different poses she can do and did. But this one shows the product really well, and it's a recognizable yoga pose, not too fancy. This location was really great, except for this thing right here, but I was able to control it a little bit more. It was a little out of control with the color, and so anyway, I was able to make it clean, tried to frame her in this square, so if the graphic designer crops this square, they're going to have a nice little square shot with her framed in these paintings. I flattened out this mat. It was all curling because that's how they work. So anyway, in the end, I thought it was great. There was big windows over here. There was windows from the front door over here. It was sunset time, and so the light over here was a little warmer. You can see right here it's a little more warm than it is on the other side where it's more blue. So it made for a nice, very natural, but also very well sculpting lighting. Here's where it shows her washing the patch. Shows that it can be reused and cleaned. And I like the colors. I feel like it's pretty consistent. It's very natural. and I had to wash the counter all by hand and scrub it and everything. I didn't have a crew for this. This is all very short notice. They contacted me, and in the end I had between 3 and 5 days from when they contacted me to execute and deliver this thing. So that was pretty nuts. So I spent 100% of my weekend and then the evenings and times on other days trying to get this thing put together and working and shot and edited and delivered. So very quick, no crew, just me and the talent and one person from the company just there to help out or supervise or whatever. Okay, here's my yoga flat lay. So I got the yoga mat and the headphones and the phone for music, and I got my towel, and then she's grabbing it out right there. So that's the one they chose there. If this was you, what would you have done different? I'd be happy to hear your criticisms. I'm not above that. I understand that when you go out and you do your best and you're just trying to work with what you have and solve problems on site, hindsight's 20/20. It's much easier to look back and say, well, maybe you could have done this differently, and I value that because then I can take that information and use it on the next one. And that's how I work to just always improve. I consider myself to be as much of a beginner now as I ever was. I always want to improve and get better. So let me know what you think. If you like this video, if you want to see more, there's another job that was twice as big as this one that I've also recently finished. I've delivered it, and now I'm waiting for approval. When that's done, I'm going to make another video critiquing that photo shoot, and it'll be similar to this. So if you like this, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when my next video arrives, and maybe share it with a friend. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video.